fantastic. Look at you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's like butter, baby. I'm wearing leather today.
It looks amazing. You look great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Well, I am thrilled to have you. And by the way, I just feel like, Laverne, this is your time. It's such an exciting time for you. Orange is the New Black just started its second season. The cover of Time magazine, you know, and this is the first time an openly transgender person has appeared on the cover of Time magazine. So, Laverne, when you got that call, what did you think?
Well, we did a cover try, and they told me that, barring some big event, you know, I would probably be on the cover. And then my Aunt Angelou passed away. Maybe she rest in peace. I love her. And then there was that shooting, and so I was like, oh, I'm not going to make the cover. And then we got it, and I just cried. I just cried, and I was overwhelmed, and it still feels like it's sort of an out-of-body thing. But really, what helps me deal with it is thinking about all the trans folks out there who will see that cover and believe that things are possible for them that maybe aren't so possible.
I know that you talked about this a little bit in the New York Times Magazine as well, but why do you think at this moment in time people are feeling much more comfortable about having an open conversation about the transgender community? Why now, do you think, Laverne?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that trans people, because of the internet and because of social media, trans people we have our voice now, and we are letting our voices be heard, and we're willing to be visible. There's so many amazing trans folks out there who are telling their stories and sharing their stories and saying this is how our story should be told. And I really think it's coming from us, and so people are getting to meet trans people and get to know us as human beings. And I think when we get to know folks as human beings, all our misconceptions about people who are different from us melt away.
Yeah, I know that you became a very visible spokesperson. I know you were speaking out before Orange is the New Black,
yes.
but I think it gave you newfound visibility, this show. And the second season, as I mentioned, premiered last Friday. You play Sophia Burset, an incarcerated African-American transgender woman. We have a clip where you're getting ready to have your son come and visit. That Kate Mulgrew is so great, isn't she?
Kate the Great. It's whenever I get to do a scene with Kate, it's just like I kind of just want to sit back and watch her work. She's so brilliant. As is our entire cast of Orange. Shout out to the entire cast of Orange is the New Black. I love you.
They are great. They were on our show, you know, earlier this fall, and I was kind of an early fan of the show, and I feel like everybody's just now catching on to it and loving it. And how important do you think it has been for the trans community to have a show like this, and more importantly, Laverne, to have a character like yours appear on a TV show that is being consumed by so many people?
The first time I heard this, I was doing a college speaking engagement last October, and a young trans guy came up to me after my lecture and said that now when I tell people who I am, when I tell someone I'm transgender, they're like, oh, like Sophia from Orange is the New Black. And then there's no more conversation, they just move on. And I spoke to another trans woman who said that she was able to have a conversation with her wife about her desire to transition, and she has since transitioned because of this character. So I think a lot of trans folks are seeing themselves in this character, which is really amazing. And I think a lot of folks who are not transgender are relating to a character they probably didn't expect to relate to.
Right, I was going to say it's just as important for people outside the community as people inside the community. Well, the last time you were here, as we've discussed, because I've run into Laverne at various places, and I got a lot of flack because I asked about the physical aspect of the transition process with another guest, and I learned that it's very, very upsetting to the transgender community because they feel that people are too often fixated on this, and that your anatomy actually has very little to do with your gender identity.
That's great, Katie. I just wanted to say I so appreciate your willingness to, first of all, have me back to really go into depth and to discuss these issues, and your willingness to sort of learn out in public. You know, I think what excited me about coming back is the possibility of modeling how do we have difficult conversations across difference, and how do we do that and create safe space for people on both sides to have those discussions. So I commend you on really being teachable, because not everyone is.
Well, and it's funny, you know, because the criticism was very hurtful because I kept that exchange in, and I said, that was an inappropriate exchange. I want to use this as a teachable moment, not only for myself, but how do we explain sort of what is the appropriate conversation, and how do we make people feel if we don't have an example of what you shouldn't do, as well as what you should do.
Absolutely. I think we have to be able to make mistakes in public. I mean, I don't even know if it's a mistake, really. I just heard recently Heather Thompson said it's only a mistake if you make it twice.
Yeah.
Right? So that then we really can have these moments when people can come to new spaces of consciousness if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to maybe not always get it quote unquote right.
Right, and you know, I feel very proud of our show because I think we have consistently created a space here on our program where we have really explored this issue. We talked to 19-year-old Devin, who was a transgender girl who was crowned homecoming princess at her high school. Chris, who began his transition from a girl to a boy when he was 12. 6-year-old Coy Mathis, whose parents successfully sued her school because she wasn't able to use the girls' bathroom. Yes. And recently there was a story about a 6-year-old named Rylan, whose parents were very supportive when he made the transition from girl to boy. I think 6 million people watched this video, Laverne, online. You know, Katie Steinmetz, who wrote the Time cover story, said this: "For many trans people, the body they were born in was a suffocating costume they were unable to take off." So did you feel that way, Laverne, when you were younger?
I didn't feel that way. And I think the important thing to note about trans people, I think if you take away anything about transgender people, is that there's not a universal trans experience. Is that everyone experiences their gender in a different way. And it's important to interact with individuals as individuals and let them to take the lead in terms of telling their story about who they are. For me, it was just an evolution. You know, the funny thing is, years ago, I was waiting tables at a place called Coffee Shop here in New York. And one of my friends from high school, several years into my transition, came into, she was a customer, and I was like, "Hi, Deborah, and I've changed a lot since high school," I said to her. And she's like, "No, you haven't really changed much." And I think for me, for the people who really know me, I've just become more of myself. I've become more of myself, and I'm certainly more happy. I'm happier with the shell, but I'm just more myself now.
But I know getting there was not half the fun, Laverne. I mean, you had a very tough time when you were younger. You grew up in Mobile, Alabama, and I know that you were bullied.
Yes.
You tried to take your own life when you were just 11 years old. So it was a struggle, and I think people need to understand that as well, that sometimes that is also just the realization or the acceptance is a transition as well.
I mean, I think, so the journey for me has been, the self-acceptance piece, the evolving into being more myself, has really been about learning to love myself. When I tried to commit suicide at 11, I thought that who I was a problem. My gender had been policed by the other students who were chasing me home from school every day, trying to beat me up, by my teachers, my 3rd grade teacher who called my mother and said, "Your son is gonna end up in New Orleans wearing a dress if we don't get him into therapy right away," by my church, by my mother. Everyone was telling me that who I was authentically was a problem. And I didn't really know how to be anything else but myself. And so I wanted to end it. And my grandmother had actually recently passed, and I imagined her being up in heaven looking down on me, and I thought she knew all the thoughts that I was having about myself. And I imagined that she was really disappointed in me, and it was something I didn't want to live with at the time. And it's a really painful thing to think about. I'm so happy that I survived. You know, if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here today to testify, to bear witness to that struggle. But I think for me, it's really been about learning to love myself just as I am, even as I change, even as my body evolves into being more myself. I have to accept the person that's in the mirror right now, today.
Well, you've become, I think, you know, I admire you so much because I think you have become such an eloquent advocate for so many people.